joining in, Matt. He's walking around.
But now he's like a still image. One of it has to do with going on. There we go.
Okay, I think we're all set to go.
Dylan, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, you want to go ahead and start the meeting?
Yes, let's call the meeting to order at 9:12 a.m.
And we're already on the record.
Okay. And then we have participants. We have 2 participants missing would be or just John, right? John and Elliot are missing. And I believe Jackie is there today.
Yes. There's 3 missing, Lonnie, Jack, John,
Okay.
and
Thank you.
And then our representatives missing are Patrick and Jenna
Right. And Shay.
and Shay. Yeah.
Not very inspiring for your first meeting, is it, Jackie, when no one's here?
Scared everyone away.
This isn't usually the case.
No,
All right. Are there any comments or questions for any community audience members here today?
No.
No.
Okay. Approval of the September 19th minutes. I'm going to abstain from that vote. I have not, or that decision, I have not seen the minutes. Any edits, corrections? Do you need a minute to review?
Everybody that's seen them.
Okay. So is everyone in there in favor of moving forward with those minutes and getting them posted?
I have no objections.
Okay.
They're okay.
yeah.
Okay. So our agenda for today, now we have 1 hour and 15 minutes. I believe I said someone said I heard a 10:30 meeting in the same location. So we need to be out probably in 1 hour and 10 minutes. So we have status report on prior action items, review the list of ideas for ECTA and Shannon Circle Trail Association to help the village, and decide on next steps regarding potential contract with them. Develop goals for the Recreation Trails Committees applicable to the village comprehensive plan. So that's really what's our process going to be. I believe I covered that a bit last time. How are we going to get to identifying those key goals? And we'll talk about that. Status of Trails Plus grant. We talked about criteria for skate park and pump track, and we may want to table that depending on if we think the whole committee should be involved in that conversation, including our skate park advocates, and then determine next meeting date, time, location, and topics. Everyone okay with that agenda as proposed?
Yeah, no
Okay.
objections. I think it probably would be wise to table the skate park discussion until there's more people. We don't want to be making decisions like that in a vacuum, even in our own committee.
Right, and that was only to start talking about criteria, but I agree. There may be some criteria we're not thinking about, others might be, so that would be okay. So there's a proposal to table the skate park pump cut conversation for another meeting and make sure the skate park advocates are present. That sound
Great.
reasonable to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, so that's tabled. All right, staff's report on prior action items. Tim, you want to catch us up on anything that we're lacking on?
Let's see. There was two that we kind of came up with last meeting that we never really got a lead person assigned to, and that was research the event center in Winter Park, Colorado. And then investigate or identify the current path to the extent that one exists that the students at the high school are using right now to walk to and from Allen Fields. So I don't know if anybody's wanted to tackle either one of those.
Elliot seemed to know that path.
Yeah, Elliot seemed to know, so maybe when he's back, either ask him if he wants to do that.
Or since he's not here, you can just elect him, right?
Maybe we ought to just go ahead.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
according to Patrick's note, it sounds like we need to get a survey route of that path, for John Kitts, I guess.
Yeah, if that's if the one that they're using now is not what we decide to use, it wouldn't need to be on the survey. I think Elliot was the path he is thinking of, I think he thinks it's not practical because it goes through too much of the wetlands and it needs to probably come a little bit further south. But
So, can I propose that conversation move right into item D, since it fits in with that topic?
item D.
It's a Trails Plus grant, and so.
Right. And, yeah, I think that makes sense because now we've got a little bit more time also.
Got a lot more
To
time.
get everything, well,
Yeah.
it'll come up pretty quick.
Yeah,
I've been working 2 weeks just to try to get surveys and still I've got nothing. So it takes a little bit to get all that together. So what do we have till December? Is that what it is?
Yeah, December 31st or something.
But that's when the application's due, but then it's gotta get,
Right, so let's save all that conversation about the grant to item D when we come around to that a little bit.
Okay.
The first thing regarding the Winter Park thing, that actually fits under item E as well. 'Cause that's where it came up, where that Winter Park had their skate park and pump track all close to the kind of village center. And that was what triggered Patrick to bring that up.
Yeah. And I did just do a quick search on that, and it, like on the website, they show pictures of that track thing as part of their, it looks pretty nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Another prior action item is that I believe I understood that we do now have a fillable form for the trail inspection form.
Right.
I think one of our first tasks from council was to do a status report on condition of all the trails. So now that that's completed, one of us that is probably not a co-chair should take lead on trying to coordinate at least getting the village trails done. Maybe this fall before the snow flies, and then work with Patrick on how we get the rest of the stuff done before the next hiking season, so we know what repairs got to be made and signs replaced and that sort of thing. So I'd say an action item is to put a project chair on getting that Google a fillable form or inspection sheet being worked on.
Is that something personnel in this committee would do, or is that something for the village trails, a village person would do, and for the resort, a resort person would do?
Yeah, I think that if you have the form filled out, submitted to Shay, then Shay would submit to the village. I think that would be the protocol.
So, but somebody from this committee would
Well,
do the inspections and do the fillable form?
I don't know. No, I don't think so.
I think the first thing is, we got the fillable form from Matt yet.
Yeah, Matt's completed it, right, Matt?
That is correct.
But you haven't sent it out, correct?
I believe I did, but I will double check. I may not have.
Okay.
I kind of think that we have more trails expertise, knowledge and perspective than a couple of maintenance folks that work in Parks and Recreation who are thinking about mowing weeds and don't see it from a trail user perspective per se. So if maybe we work with Shay, here's a suggestion is that, we do one of the trails jointly with their staff and train them on what we're looking for, and then they could do the rest, or we coordinate with them for the village ones right now.
Seems like a reasonable proposition.
Okay, does anyone want to take lead on working with Shay on, see if we can coordinate the Senderos del Sol, Frank Young, and the other little piece trail, the 3 pieces in the village. Any volunteers?
I'd be
Chris?
happy to try to do that before I
Okay.
leave in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is that, but that was an action item out of the council meeting?
It was the charge we first got when this committee was formed. The first thing they wanted an assessment of the trails in the village.
Oh.
An overall assessment to
Okay.
report back.
And so the village trails are Sendero del Sol, Frank Young, and then part of Bobcat, I think, along the highway. But I don't know, it seemed like there was been confusion with Shay of whose trail that is, if that's village or if that's resort. I think it might be half and half, but. And then the solar loop, the one that goes back, I guess is my understanding that's resort, not village. But I guess one thing, Chris, you might want to clarify when you give a Shay is what are the village trails?
Well, I remember this takes us back to several conversations in the past where we just don't know. There's been confusion for years about who owns certain portions of the trail.
Yeah, it seems like it shouldn't be that hard to find out because you find out who owns the land and over which those trails go. And
Well, we could get with Patrick. He, I think, clearly knows which ones he's maintaining.
right,
And the
but
rest,
there could be certain sections that nobody's claiming ownership of.
Well, that's the reason why that bridge,
Trails.
Yeah, I mean, the village may be maintaining, like, say, parts of Bobcat that are really resort, I don't know.
yeah.
So that may be another question on the forum. And think about it. Is management ownership of this trail clear? And so we could find that out. I think management is pretty important on who's managing it. It could be owned by the village and the resort's managing it, or vice versa, depending on what kind of agreements have happened in the past. It's
Yeah.
also worth understanding. Okay.
The signs of the trailheads say they're jointly managed by Resort Village and Moreno Valley Truckers, which is not.
Which means no one's managing it.
Yeah,
Well,
that's just a nice feel good sign, huh?
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I see them, they're,
Well, but like, for instance, on the solar loop, that bridge
Right.
is,
That hasn't been
terrible.
touched.
but it's been brought up to Shay, right?
well, but then Shady, I think, came back and said that's a resort trail. So that's when that maybe nobody's doing anything on.
Right. I think that's the issue, why that hasn't taken place.
Cause I think the resort thinks it's, village and village thinks it's resort, so nothing gets done on that trail.
Okay, so the action item on that is just to, Chris will coordinate with Shay and see if we can work with her staff, and at least doing a preliminary checklist on a couple of those 2 village trails that we know for sure to get this process started, that we can present something.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Any other action items that we're lacking on?
Well, like Jeff mentioned, he's still working on the easement stuff. Patrick's task of trying to get resort, approval, well,
He's waiting on me.
he's waiting on you,
Yeah.
so.
So,
Those were the major things. I think, probably Elliot was gonna do some research on what makes a good cross-country running course
Mhm.
for possible considerations in the trail design. Again, since we've got a little bit more time, that's not as, timely sensitive as it was.
a proposal, to come up with a, design for the gates and the barriers, the corridor going through the
Yeah.
CS ranch. to
But that
submit
won't
to
be,
them.
that won't necessarily be an action item and that'll be a design consideration.
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
Design.
Mhm.
I guess we will have some input or recommendations maybe.
It'll need to
What
be,
we think.
yeah, because, it's 150 foot wide easement, so something that can be taken down and put back up at least twice a year, looks as well as looks good, will be some.
Well, now when you say
Thought.
150 foot.
That's
All right,
about
save
what-
that's an item D. That's an item D, so we'll save that conversation for
Okay,
down the line, please.
okay,
So, yeah, I don't
Okay.
know, I think, probably good on that.
So another action I'm gonna work on, then I'm gonna continue to see if I can resolve this this group Outlook group thing, or maybe switch and create a Google group instead of a Outlook group. See if I can resolve that topic for us. Okay, so item B, ECTA topics. What could ECTA help the village with, and decide on next steps regarding contract with them if we want to pursue that. So Lonnie prepared a list. Does anyone have that list to share with go over that list?
I've got a copy, so the things we came up were kiosk with local and area trails, help with access points into the Carson Forest, grant writing assistance, community workshop for trails plan, adaptive trail assessment, trails promotion, trail extension planning, including the Frank Young extension, and then on to the RV Park, Vietnam Memorial, Eagle Nest. That he had those, and then I had kind of done a list, which kind of was a little bit repetitive of that, but I think also I had in there is that they provide a kiosk with a map of all the Enchanted Circle trails, similar to what they did for Red River. And also the other one was help with assessment of parking alternatives at Lady Slipper Trailhead. And then, Attila, you suggested we look over the charter deliverables for more ideas.
Yeah, I bet most of those are in there too.
Yeah. So those were kind of things that I guess we were thinking that we would want them to be specific on the items they would actually help us with if we were to enter a contract with them. Another thing I have, it's not necessarily things they would help us with, but I think it would be, I would like to get it nailed down of who else is contributing money. I'd hate to see Angel Fire be the only community, be the one contributing money, and then they're spending the bulk of their time working on the trail from Red River to Cuesta, which seems to be a big project of theirs. So I mean, I think we'd want to see that other communities are doing a buy-in also, and not just us. And then I think when we asked him, Lauren, that question, he kind of danced around it, in my opinion, and kind of said, well, maybe it'd be better if we could get this council of governments to contribute instead of the individual communities. So I'm thinking what he's saying is maybe a lot of the individual communities maybe have contributed in the past, but maybe aren't currently doing so. So I think if we do meet with him, I'd like to have him be more specific on that topic.
And that's also a topic that perhaps when the Enchanted Circle Mayor's Group meets, they can have that conversation. I'm kind of betting Linda Calhoun has probably contributed because it's if they're getting all kinds of help with OHV stuff and trails to Queston, that I bet maybe the Red River Mayor has contributed to ECTA more than anyone else has because they're seeing the direct benefit from that. So if Mayor Lindsay is meeting with the other mayors in the area, that could be a conversation topic. So as far as those project ideas, this kind of reflects on, our comprehensive plan. We have a trails plan from 2006, and we have some trails priorities that were developed in 2018. Would it make sense to retain ECTA to help facilitate a community forum to help kind of revise the trails plan and maybe do that early springtime or something? We can figure out how we make that work for the remote people and local people, but with the idea that this kind of work would lead right into the content for the comprehensive plan as part of our identifying our goals and the strategies for trails road development in the village under the comp plan. To me, we could use help with that kind of a big topic. That's a big subject. Could be a weekend workshop. They've been done in weekend workshops. It could be different elements of that. So that's one thing I would advocate for is working with them on what kind of how they could facilitate some sort of a conversation around that.
I definitely like how you have that printed out, what, they can help with, assist with, that kind of lays out a good, fundamental roadmap of things we can work with them on.
I think that's a good suggestion about the comp plan, but that wasn't on the radar when we were coming up with the initial list, but you could add that.
Oh, yeah.
Going back to this meeting of mayors, is there a meeting of mayors taking place? I have no idea.
I've made a note so I could talk to the mayor about that for sure.
I believe I don't know if it's a regular basis, but I believe in the past, when I was doing the Enchanted Circle Trails plan, I remember there's the mayor's group did meet on some, I don't know if it was a regular basis or irregular basis, but when topics come up, I think they did convene once in a while to talk about regional issues.
Okay, so you're gonna talk with the mayor and make sure, I don't even know if we're on his radar.
Yeah, I don't, with ECTA, I don't know.
Yeah,
What is that?
I'm not familiar with ECTA
Enchanted
as much as.
Circle Trails Association, so it's kind of a regional trails,
Oh, okay.
the coordinator,
yeah.
liaison.
Enchanted Circle, so theoretically covers the whole Enchanted Circle.
Okay.
So Jackie, a quick 1 minute overview is in 2018 or so, the Taos County, maybe the city and Taos Land Trust all kind of coordinated hiring the land trust group. I forget which one it is all of a sudden to coordinate a regional trails plan for the Enchanted Circle. And every community participated in that. Angel Fire, I facilitated a couple of community meetings as a Park Service representative in Angel Fire. All that information was put into the Enchanted Circle Trails plan, which all the local governments adopted. And one of the things with that was how does this thing stay alive? How do we get momentum? And so with that, we helped create the Enchanted Circle Trails Association. They had an executive director from the get-go, and now their second executive director is Lauren Bell, who used to be with the Taos Mountain Bike Association. So they're working, first had BLM contracts and Forest Service contracts, bringing crews out there, coordinating maintenance work. Now it's expanding where they're doing a lot of implementing the highest priority projects that came out of the Trails Plan. Nothing in Angel Fire was the highest priority because in the final prioritization community meetings that were held, Angel Fire didn't participate in those. So it was kind of whoever comes is the right people, how it got voted in. But all the projects we've identified that show up on all these different maps are in the Enchanted Circle Trails Plan. So that document is pretty alive and well, and it's worth revisiting. It's probably worth putting back in front of council again to remind them that this document is out there, that we believe in it. It's been adopted by the village, and ECTA is the one that can help implement and help us implement parts of it. So
They're
if
asking-
all, yeah, so if all our pieces of that trail plan or the trail lines that showed up in that map, we can, go back and reprioritize those, see where they fit, what's changed. We're seeing work on power line trail and other improvements the village has been, that the resort's been doing. So this idea of connecting the forest and that side of the near Elliott Barker is gaining momentum, but we still have this need to connect in town. We hear over and over again, if the Northward Quadrant gets developed with a hotel ever, or the workforce housing those areas and a route into town, non-motorized route or motorized if it's e-bikes and such, would be fantastic to get into town. So there's a lot we can be working on, but we need community voice to help us know where we want to go. And ECTA could be a good facilitator for that sort of work.
And the act is asking the Village of Angel Fire for $12,000 to help fund their organization. And that's what we're saying, in return for the 12,000, what are we going to ask them to do for us?
Makes sense. Thank you.
So do you think the next step ought to just to try to get a meeting with Lauren and start going over these ideas? And I think he's pretty willing to come over here in person, which I think would be more effective than we tried last time to do the meeting over Zoom.
Agreed. I like the idea of the kiosk of all the regional trails that someone else mentioned that's seen. That could be somewhere near Frontier Plaza, possibly.
That's our.
Yeah, probably right out there, maybe like where the deer trail, right there by the park, and then where the deer trail start, deer trail head.
Yeah.
Have visitor center.
Yeah, you got a new visitor center over there now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, maybe I think good next step would have an in-person meeting with him here, and maybe we could even
Show him.
go, walk outside here and kind of, get a feel of what he's thinking too.
Great.
Okay, I will commit to following up with Lauren.
And then the truckers recently expanded their adopted trail with ECTA regarding the Elliott Barker Trail. Originally, we were just doing a 4-mile section, and now it's the whole 11-mile section.
Oh.
So.
What an empire. That's an empire.
Yeah. Well, part of it is, the big problem we've got now is the Elliott Barker Trail is inaccessible from Highway 64 at the parking lot, because the road construction's using that parking lot to store all their materials and stuff. So we can't get into that section of the trail that we were originally gonna maintain. So we're really having to do parts of the trails going up either the power lines or where the water towers are at Sunset Ridge and going south. And that was not gonna be part of our responsibilities, but that's really the only part we can easily get to and get in there with our tools and stuff, so. I think John has had some recent conversations with Lauren.
Okay.
Yeah, on the adopted trail part of it.
I did see that truckers are planning a work day on the 12th, I believe.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, that's cool. Hopefully I can make that one. Okay, so I'm gonna follow up with ECTA on in-person visit and throughout this idea of facilitating community conversation around trails and maybe potentially recreation as well, since we're looking at both. And in installation and finding funding for a kiosk to promote regional recreation opportunities, trail opportunities. And we'll take that on. Jackie, you pretty comfortable with what we learned about ECTA?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
of course. Okay, anything else on the ECTA topic? Okay. Village comp plan. So our committee meets next week, and we're preparing a template for each committee that can help them think through what are the challenges we're facing as in recreation and trails, and whether it's lack of infrastructure or lack of we don't know who owns what, lack of ability to get around town, but we are going to want to come up with issues and challenges statements or statements, which then will have related goals developed for those draft goals. So in this first phase of the comp plan right now, we're just looking at if this is going to align with what we're doing with Lauren too, potentially, what are those big goals of, inter village connectivity, Forest Service access, UTV, if it comes up, I don't know, but whatever might come up, we want to think about what those goals might be that can be moving into the comp plan. And then
What,
question,
what day are y'all meeting?
we meet on the 16th, and then there's going to be another on October 30th. There's going to be a meeting for all the working committee chairs. That's I don't know where that meeting is going to take place on October 30th, since I don't know where, but that's going to be going through this template and how we're going to move forward. So really, we have until the springtime really to develop a really good, succinct challenge list, challenge and issues statements, and subsequently developing the goals that would address those challenges, how we're going to deal with those goals. So that does set the stage up for a good trails workshop, because I want to make sure we have good community feedback on those things. Following that, then we'll be thinking about what are the objectives, actions that address those things. And those actions and strategies could be policy that the village adopts. It could be a program that is run by the resort or the village. It could be a promotional item run by the visitor center or some other place. And it could be just a physical project. So we'll be looking at the strategies are kind of that 4 P's of projects, promotions, policy, and programming.
I also know as well on that comprehensive plan, there's some new developments that are taking place, the Four Seasons condos. There's another project that's gonna happen on the west side of that project that's right up against the creek, behind New Mexico Bank and Trust.
Uh-huh.
And, those developments are interested in, possibly having that trail connection designed, cause they're right up against the creek along their facility. So as they develop that, if we could probably, have some sort of, plan as far as where that trail is, cause I know there's a movement to connect the trail from the ski area down to, along the creek.
Right.
So I'll go to that meeting, but as far as that goes, you know, as that development is gonna be starting soon, maybe that would be a consideration.
Hmm. And the reason these committees are meeting, and it brings up a good point, Jeff, is that there's a lot of goals that are going to be overlapped. For example, this goal of open space or trail corridor aligns pretty well with the both workforce housing, because we've heard that housing development that may be behind the ZEBs. There's two different versions of that. One shows there's a little less housing because there's more space for parks and open space. Um, and it also fits in with the P&Z Planning and Zoning Commission because, maybe we're allocating, working with these developers to make sure there's allocate space for these pedestrian connections from those facilities, those condos into the sidewalk system or into the trail system. So that's not just road based. So as we think through all this stuff, we start doing goals. The reason we're all working together on this because there's some goals that we're working on that are going to very well complement other committee goals, and they've got goals that are going to complement well with what we're doing. So that's how we're trying to get all these people to think together. That's the hardest part of this is going to try to um, bring this all together. The idea of a trail along that Ski Hill Creek, whether it just goes to the library or all the way up, I think is fantastic because it also you could start thinking about educating people on wetlands and drainage and watersheds on that trail as well. So there's lots of cool opportunities on that. And if the developer is interested in chunking the development, we need to probably, uh, as a village, make recommendations to the village of what are acceptable surfacing for these type of things that are within the village that aren't necessarily uh, a green belt type of natural system. What do we think is acceptable that's going to last through harsh weather conditions and usable year round, even in snow? Can someone plow it? So it kind of limits your opportunities. So that's good. So a goal is to make assure that I think what you're saying there too is assure that we're hearing from others in the trail community, from the developers and others about trail goals. What are they seeing? Connections. So it's a broader perspective, which is important.
So we don't have to have our goals developed then until you say sometime in the spring?
Yeah, it'll be, I think we should be working on this off and on all winter, think about the challenge statements. Maybe we take one at each meeting and, we'll work up the bullet points for our big challenges. And we spend, 20 minutes at each meeting on some of these things to, let's say by December, we have a pretty good understanding of what we think are the issues. And maybe we find a feedback method. How do we get loop feedback on that? And then from there, we would start thinking, okay, well, because you can't solve something until you know what the problem is. So if we understand all the problems by the end of the year, that would give us time to think about the goals that we need to address to solve those problems and those challenges or those opportunities. So yeah, by next week, all we've got to be is, thinking about here is what's our process. So what are we going to do as a committee? And I just proposed one idea is that we spend, the next through the end of the December working up our issues statements, find a feedback loop for that, whether it's using resort membership and AFPO to help us get feedback loop on that, or we do something on the uh, information page, or we save that for a community workshop. But we should propose them. Here are some strategies that we're going to. Here's our timeline. Here's our task to get us to goals and objectives and issues by the springtime. I think that's what we want to get to here really soon. What's their process for this?
Oh, and the comprehensive plan committee is gonna kind of guide some of that, correct? Is that
Correct. Right.
exactly we're understanding.
Mm-hmm.
One of the comments, I can't remember if this was, I can't remember who made it, but you know, there's like 10 committees out there with 10 folks on it, of engaged citizen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that to me is a feedback loop right there.
It is.
Probably more so than just a random, you know, survey to, home membership. Who are not as engaged.
That's right. Except the trails and recreation, it captures everybody. So, you know, if you have a public meeting on the sewage treatment plant and one on trails and recreation, you have 100 people at the trails and recreation and 3 people at the sewage plant. So our topic hits all audiences, hits little kids, hits seniors, caregivers, hits visitors, hits residents. So our topic has a much broader interest than some of these other topics do. So we have to consider that as well. But I think you're right. One thing we have going for us is that there's 10 committees with different people in all of them. And that's a fantastic engagement strategy. And we can ask them for feedback on that too. So. We can, we do have some more time to spend on this. You want to spend a few more minutes thinking about what our steps might be to get to a good list of draft goals by the springtime.
Yeah, you know, as far as I can see too, it's connecting the dots in the inner village.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a big goal of everyone is to connect the dots as we see, Liberty Park being developed. We're working on, you know, the trail to Allen Fields. And then, you know, what else do we need to connect the ski area down to these trails? You know, I think that's a big and, goal to just connect those dots.
Yeah, I think a good starting point is this 2006 comprehensive, or the Angel Fire Trails Plan. That was their number one goal, was to develop a comprehensive and interconnected, non-motorized network of trails for public access that is safe, accessible, and contributes to the general quality of life in Angel Fire. I think that's, and then they had their objectives after that. But I mean, even though this thing's almost 20 years old, it almost looks like it was written yesterday. I mean, it's.
I bet it's very relevant. Absolutely.
Yeah, we, I don't know.
And I'd be curious where e-bikes fit into that.
Well, yes.
I'm sure you guys have had that topic.
Well, no, it's been tabled.
Yeah.
It's on our future, but that
But e-bike-
e-bike will have to be part of this, and it will be, I think
Yeah.
it's an important,
But it wasn't in 2006.
No.
They
Right.
weren't around.
because
Yeah.
they use a lot of non-motorized vehicle reference in here.
Yeah,
And so now you got an e-bike, you know, like the Forest Service considers an e-bike to be motorized. So if you trail in the forest says non-motorized, it means no e-bike. Other people think e-bikes are not motorized vehicles and they're allowed. So I mean, it is, I think an e-bike policy will be an important goal.
I think part of that was the different levels of e-bikes, right?
Well, yeah.
What was,
Well, you got class 1, 2, and 3, and like the
Yeah.
class 1s are the pedal assist.
yeah,
Then you got ones that are basically a motor, you know, equivalent of a motorcycle and so forth. But supposedly the resort has an e-bike policy for their trails. I don't think the village does. But yeah, I think that will be important.
great thought.
So you start that off with a issue statement that e-bike opportunities are expanding across the country. E-bike manufacturers are left and right, from your $1,000 Chinese bikes to your expensive bikes. There's a whole realm. There's many RVers who are traveling with e-bikes in the back of their rigs.
Yep.
How can they get to town? How can they move about? Issues are, we think that the the resort has a policy on e-bikes, the village is not. What happens if you're riding a resort trail and it connects to a forest trail? Those are issues and challenges. Do you not let that trail be e-bike if it connects to a forest trail that doesn't allow it? For example, in Albuquerque, open space areas, if the open space trail crosses into a national forest, that trail is not an e-bike trail if it's going to conflict with another land manager on the same alignment. So those are the challenges. And so what I'm asking here in this part is if we went back to the comp plan committee and said that our committee is going to spend October, November, December working on issue challenge statements, everything we can think of, including recreation topics. What is all I know is that Marianne and Allison have talked to Shay about recreation. But I don't know much about what the recreation issues are in the village. It's not really been shared of what their challenges are. Because they don't do programming, so it's just all infrastructure as far as I can tell. But all those issues, I think what we want is like, here's this one issue. We can have it on its own page, and then what are the goals that might address this issue? So all we're looking for right now, what's our process to get to draft goals? How do you guys want to tackle it?
Well, I think that you gave us a really good starting point is let's identify what the problems that we're trying to solve first. Because a lot of this conversation starts to boil down, or it starts to get wrapped up in that overall 30,000 foot view where we start talking about, okay, well, what do we do about e-bikes? What do we do about this? So I think that we start with like, what are the problems that we're trying to solve? And I think that we already have a good understanding of what those problems are based on those goals. But I think if we can spend just a little bit of time establishing that baseline, I think it might guide us and make the rest of the process easier because we have a clear problem in mind that we are actually trying to resolve.
Great. Thanks, Matt. That's good. Good observation, good perspective. So what about if we allocate time? Here's another idea. We allocate maybe our time at our next meeting just to list out all the issues, challenges, and opportunities. Just come up with a big laundry list, a big brainstorm list. We try to group those together, and then from then on, we can tackle a couple at a time through our meetings. So we have maybe 6 to 10 to 12 challenge issues and opportunities that we want to deal with starting in January.
Yeah, I like that because if we can identify all of our problems and then group them, then we can work on them as batches. And so instead of working on one thing and then finding down the road, oh, well, we should have also been working on this as well because these two are closely related. We don't have to go back and spin our wheels trying to play catch up on it. So I think if we can, get those problems batched up and tackle a batch at a time, I think it would be a very productive way to go about it instead of trying to pick and choose where we focus and what problems we focus on.
Nice. Okay. Everyone comfortable with that approach?
Yes, I'm a little confused because I thought what you were saying until I was at your meeting of the 16th, you were going to come up with a process for all these committees to do. Is that something different or the same thing that we're just?
We're going to help. We're going to on the 16th. We're going to create a template for us to work on. With the template will have. It'll identify the challenges and issues. Like here's a spot for this challenge, and then below that might be goals and objectives. So all we're working on is here's the template and how each committee goes about their process. It's probably left to each other committee, but the deliverable we want comp plan committee is going to want out of each committee is how you clarified your issues, opportunities, and challenges, and what are the draft goals you're working on to get that. So night sky committee, for example, might have an issue that there's too many properties that have their floodlights on all night long, or they flash on and off, and so forth and so on. They might have a goal that says we're going to have an ordinance that says you're fined whatever amount if you leave your lights on. So that might be how they go about doing that. But their issue is that there's too much night sky light. You can't see stars, or it's impacting the night sky. So for us, then, just to clarify, Chris, is that what we want to present to the committee on October 30th, comp plan committee, and to all the chairs, that the Recreation Trails Committee is going to go through a step-by-step process first to brainstorm a list of all our goals, objectives. List all of our issues, challenges, and opportunities that we have there. Flesh those out into some coherent grouping methodology, and then following that, we'll spend time taking those issue statements into goal statements. That help?
Yeah, thanks.
And I guess, I mean, the template that we're gonna use won't be available at our next meeting, so we'll kind of work on these
The template.
in general, then we can put them in
Yeah.
when the templates.
Right. I think all we've got to agree to present, all have to agree to right now is that what is our approach that we're going to use as a committee to provide content on our goals and objectives to the comprehensive plan committee, or to the comprehensive plan, not to the committee, but what's our strategy? And so we proposed that we're going to spend the next couple of months working through and clarifying our issues and issues and opportunities and challenges.
Yeah. that'd be
Finalize
really good.
that.
As far as resources, I think the resources we need, so that, it'll need to be part of that, just like, for instance, I'm trying to get a survey of the easement,
Yeah.
what are the resources we can use so that we don't have to we'll know, maybe I'll just go straight to the county, for these resources, what, I think some of the resources are gonna be important to be able to
Okay.
use.
So I will commit to maybe trying to summarize what we just agreed to, and share that back with you guys probably this weekend when I get back to Angel Fire this weekend. So I'll send that out as here's a proposal, and if you guys have any feedback for that, I'd appreciate that before we submit it to and present it at the the October 30th meeting. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to item D. So after a flurry of activity, it became pretty clear that the village staff had no idea how much was involved in putting together a grant application for the Trails Plus grant.
Yeah, that's why I had Rocky send that to Shay, so we'd know what the application actually looked like from the get-go, because that was a pretty short deadline. Yeah.
Right. So I provided some background information on many of the questions for them, and I don't know if they started anything or not. I just didn't even enter it into the formats. I'm not sure where that even stood with what I provided. But where are we at? I mean, let's go through what we've still got to help them with, or are we, because I can't, unfortunately, I think that's going to, if the thing we asked for a month ago was to give us the application online so we can share it online, that never got sent out. I don't know where the ball got dropped on that, but we never saw any version of that, even draft. And then we learned that never even started submitting because they ran out of time. So And all we saw from the village, I think from Shay, was that they were missing the letter from CS Ranch and missing the letter from the resort. It seemed like everything was just those two things that were kind of outstanding. And I think there's a lot more than that that's outstanding for a good application.
But those are kind of the first priorities, I would think, trying to get those established, right? You know,
Right.
and that's what I'm trying to work on, you know.
Which really, I mean, again, I mean, it's good that you're working on that, but technically, they probably should be the ones spending their time and efforts to track that stuff down.
Yeah,
But I mean, given the short time to get that thing done, I mean, there's no way they would even get to that point.
This is I don't know, this is a chicken and egg kind of thing to me, because I thought the purpose of the grant was to get, engineering resources to help us figure out some of this stuff. Without the grant, we're trying to do it piecemeal on our own.
yeah, but we need the easement approval before we can even,
And that's-
decide on developing the trail
So
or designing the trail. And that's just about,
we're gonna get the sewers easement presumably. That would define the trail to Allen's Field. But how do we get the, design or not the design, but the trail route for the high school to Allen's Field? And then what about the third one?
Right. Those, I guess, require additional easements, but do those have to be done, like I say, does that have to be done? If we're applying for a grant to get money to design a trail, does all that stuff have to be in place before you apply for that?
I don't know.
I would think so,
It's-
doesn't it?
It sounded like Shay was saying that, we need the resort permission and we need CS Land Ranch permission.
Yep.
And that requires basically an easement. That's the permission, is the
Right.
easement.
Yeah.
Um,
And as far as those go, we've talked Patrick's, the resort's on board, CS Ranch is on board.
Well, the resorts may be on,
I mean-
it's not, yeah.
I shouldn't say it that way, I'm just saying they're pro, it
They're
seems like
for
they're
it,
for it,
depending.
but, it's a matter of, I've gotta get that map for both, and then we as a committee need to come up with a plan to submit to CS Ranch. Don't you agree?
Right.
Everyone agree with that?
Sound- Sounds like it at this point to me.
But
So
then
it's a matter of,
Right.
maybe we can go walk that CS Ranch property, so you can get a visual of what we're looking at, but, what are we gonna submit to them as far as that corridor where we're going through their property that can be taken down so the cattle can come through? What type of gates?
Well, no, does the gate have to be taken down for the cattle to get through, or are we just talking about gates? So that people using the trail can go across and then they can close it, so when they bring the cattle through there, that you're just talking a gate the width of the trail. It has to be closed
Well,
whenever
no.
they're bringing cattle down.
We were talking about making a corridor too, of that 150-foot
Oh.
swath, so that people aren't roaming on their
Oh, I
property.
didn't realize that. I thought we were
You
just talking
know.
about gates on each end of the fence line.
Is that what CS Ranch wants, is they don't want
It runs
people,
east-west.
so that's almost like putting up a fence, the whole 150 feet.
See, I didn't realize we were talking about that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we know the answer to that.
Yeah, we probably don't know the answer.
Well, I think that's probably what they'll be looking at, but that's something we need to discuss, but a fence wouldn't be practical. He even said those, green gates line them up, but I don't know, I don't vision that being.
There's many trail systems that have a private land easement and they just have a sign.
Stay on trail.
Yeah.
There's many trails across private land. There is a sign, and you see that on forest roads all the time. Next quarter mile, private property, both sides of the trail, stay on trail. I'm kind of thinking if it's not the most scenic little section of corridor, and you're going to just walk down a hill into the loading pins. So I don't think we'd have a problem with people going on and off that section of trail. So the green gates on either side of it to close off when they've got cattle there might be enough, but we need to have that conversation with what CS really wants before we can do that. So I don't know what Dennis Engineering charges for a design for this thing, but if the design for this thing was on an easement and we've already pretty much given what we think is good surfacing, if the design is only $10,000 or $15,000 of time for Dennis Engineering, um, why doesn't the village just fund that? And that shows to the state, hey, we've already paid for the design engineering on this thing. We're ready to go for the construction grant instead of drawing this out for an extra couple of years. So I would have that question as well.
For the entire trail, right?
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
including the high school part.
right?
Exactly.
All right,
Now, Attila, do you know if the village were to do that? I guess they can't use that as part of their matching portion of the grant then? Since it would be free grant.
Possibly. I don't know the answer to that for sure, but that's call Colonius and find out if that's doable or
I mean, it
not.
seems like if that would be able to be contributed as part of the match, then yeah, and they're gonna have to spend that amount of money anyway. Yeah, why not go ahead and just pay for the design and get it
I agree.
done? And then, like I say, when you submit for the grant application, it's a more shovel-ready kind of project then, more official.
And we're also at the point, so we're 6 months, the fiscal year started July 1, so we're, 4 or 5 months into the fiscal year. So if we got the Dennis Engineering on, if Shay has this year's money to use on Dennis Engineering, and we propose next July with a new village budget, okay, we need $25,000 match for construction, and we think we're going to get that. I think it'd be an easier sell to the administration of the village to say, we got the engineering done on this. It fits in with the trails plan. It meets all these criteria. We're requesting extra funding for this, and it could be some lodgers tax money kicked in for this thing. You could really put a good package together without rushing it and have all these things in place, and you'd have a killer good application.
Well, and maybe they can, submit just the preliminary easements or get the easements together for us.
Get the
Before they
design.
charge us for the design, they can just at least get the easement side of it so that
Yeah,
we're not spending the whole.
Find out we can't,
Right.
that we're gonna we can't go there because either the resort
We don't have
doesn't like
full cooperation.
going there or whatever. Yeah, but it seems like too, I mean, so the village would have to spend some money on the legal part up front anyway, getting, cause I mean, like you say, you're working with Carl, well, I mean, I'm sure he's not gonna do all this pro bono.
Right,
And
exactly.
So there's gonna be some money needed for the survey and legal to get recorded easements.
Right,
And then kind of layer the design on top of that,
yeah,
then you're ready to go.
exactly.
Hey, Matt, you want to chime in on this conversation?
Yeah, I can. Something I've been thinking about, and I don't mean to backtrack, but this might be something that ECTA really could help with, because something that I think would be really helpful would be having somebody that we could turn to really help us navigate some of this stuff. Like maybe Lauren has some insight on how we would actually go about getting all of this stuff off the ground. And it's not to diminish the efforts of anyone in the village. It's just that it's a lot of effort spread across. They have a lot of focuses spread across, a lot of different areas. And because I don't really know, right? Because I'm kind of lost in the weeds of how do we actually get going on something like this. And maybe $12,000 of consulting would be well worth it if it could actually mean that we could get a grant in on time and go get money for something and actually fund our endeavors.
Yeah,
Like I said, I don't mean to backtrack, but
No, that's good.
I think that's a good idea too, because I mean, they may have thoughts on saying, you know, and I don't know anything about Dennis Engineering, but they may say, hey, if you're talking about this trail, there's engineering firms that specialize in this and that's all they do. And maybe you want to use somebody like that instead of a, you know, general engineering firm, or they might have input on different trail designs we haven't thought about. You know, that they work with this kind of stuff all the time. I think that might be good to the extent we can have them involved.
Just, would they have a, I mean, would they be able to, you know, consult pretty quickly on this, or are they, kind of how often do they meet?
Well, well, no, I mean, they're not, ACTA's not a committee. I mean, they're, you know, Lauren, that's his full-time job. Coming up with winter time, I mean, I imagine they may be able to be pretty responsive.
That's
Be the timing would be the most,
Yeah.
I
It's
think.
an organization, I still think that, you know, for the one thing that we could do is flesh out that, at least that trail.
Yeah.
Between the high school, Allen's Field, and maybe that third leg.
Yeah, because I think this committee would probably want to recommend the alignment
Right,
of that. I mean, the sewer line part of it's pretty
that's straightforward. Yeah.
but the alignment for the high school trail parts.
Right.
Well, this committee's probably best suited to scope that out and.
As far as I know, Elliot's the only one that went all the way.
Yeah,
And the rest of us didn't, so
Right.
it's kind of like, we don't know what he's talking about.
What I found on good grant applications is that you can't just put the application together and say, oh, hey, would you send me a letter of support? And expect that to happen. So if what this needs to happen, it should be a small workshop in itself, and maybe ACTA could do this, a small workshop that brings in the village, the resort, CS Ranch, our committee, maybe the trekkers, maybe Public Works, whoever else, to sit down, go through what we're trying to do and look through what the steps are and how we're going to get this done right. And this approach of scrambling, you're just chasing dollars and looking for support, almost always fails.
Well, I
So
agree that the initial grant was rushed, but we do have a time frame and.
We do have a time.
Similar
So-
to get this
Okay.
done.
Tim, in my action for talking with ACTA, would you add in there as they could help us maybe facilitate a conversation on what's the best approach for the Trails Plus grant for us on this?
I think we should adjourn to give them next meeting time to.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
10:20 now.
Okay, we got let's say, I think we need to move on and wrap up for the next meeting coming in that space. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, let's, item F now, we've tabled skate park and pump track. We still want to, that's still part of the goals and objectives stuff. So that fits in, so that we want to bring that back to the next meeting, potentially. Who will reach out to the skate park advocate and
I'll
have
do
them? Okay.
I'll get in touch with Oliver.
Okay. So next meeting date is, what is today? The
17th.
17th. October 17th. So we want to look at modifying the time to accommodate Shay and Jackie, whoever else,
Not on
What
the-
Regina.
yeah, what does that look like?
I don't know if Jenna would be, I mean, well, they go 4 days a week? Are they off on Mondays?
They're off on Mondays. For the most part.
Right. Jenna would have to be on Monday, put it that way.
Or evening.
It's really hard doing this without having the Parks and Rec representative on participating.
Yeah.
Would moving it to Monday allow Shay to participate? Or is it an issue with time and not a day?
Yeah, cause I mean, Mondays are day off. And then we still have it right in the middle of the day, it kind of, shoots our day. I mean, I personally, wouldn't mind evening times, cause it's less disruption of our days too.
I can be flexible and make whatever we need to make work is fine with me. I can be flexible.
So Tim, you're suggesting an evening time, but that might be hard, if we're gonna do the Zoom thing unless the village will accommodate us.
Right, then Shay, maybe that's also would be.
Right.
Outside of her time.
So talk to Shay and Jenna.
Or just keep it, I mean,
Jenna be tough.
yeah. I think when we talked about it in the past, Jenna would probably she may weigh in on outside of the meeting if we have issues. We need input
From the high school.
relate from the high school. She would be our contact person. We wouldn't necessarily have to come and sit through the meeting
Yeah,
where 90% of it has nothing to do with the high school.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I guess then the next question is what type of accommodations would be needed to have Shay join us? Because I don't want to ask her to come in after hours and spend her personal time or, on something like this. So I just don't know what the solution to that part of this problem is.
Well, any other day besides Thursday at 9 would be optimal for you, right? So.
yeah, Thursdays are pretty,
Alright,
even the AFCO meetings are on Thursdays in the evening, so Thursdays are not the best.
So do we just move it up a day, Wednesday? So instead of meeting on the 17th, we meet next Wednesday, the 16th at 9. Is that reasonable to everybody?
just have to make sure there's no other meetings going on here at Village Hall at that time.
I can find out and let you guys know.
Okay.
And I won't be here that week at all, so I mean, I think you said you'll be available.
We can
to
cover you.
Minutes.
Yes.
Okay, let's explore that. Let's throw some options out. Jeff, can you check in with Shay on that, if that might work?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Wednesday at 9, 2 weeks,
Wednesday, the 16th.
16th at 9 AM. Okay, we'll do it. And then I'll just let you know.
okay. Agenda items for next time.
I guess we can start working.
Oh, yeah, we got 5 minutes to get.
Yep.
All right, copy. We can, I guess we can come back to the, revisit the criteria for the skate park and locations. We can also start working on our, I guess our problem identification. I don't even know if we have to come up with a specific batching at this point, but if we can
No.
get
Yeah,
those,
let's
if we
just-
can get those 10 or 12 problems out in the open next meeting, I think that's a huge step in the right direction.
Okay. And then maybe I might have some report back on what ECT is doing or otherwise.
Okay.
Okay.
It sounds like.
And I would think we should put the Trails Plus grant, keep that on the topic until we
Yeah.
submit a grant.
Status, we just, until that's done, we probably just need to have a status where we're
Yeah.
at. Meeting.
Okay.
I'll keep moving forward.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any closing thoughts, comments? Sit down, Chris.
We gotta go.
Okay. Thank you much for participating.
All right, thanks everybody.
Uh,
Anyone have